Chapter 421. In the eyes of the Sky Gold Sect's Grand Elder, the reason why a mere level 2 Desolate Hunter could kill the giant dragon evil spirit, which even he, a Grand Desolate Master, did not dare to touch, was because of this seemingly insignificant saber. Since the evil spirit was already destroyed, why not take the opportunity to snatch the saber? Even if this kid was related to Han Jianxing, he would have something to say if Han Jianxing pursued the matter. He had killed his personal disciple and over 70 elite disciples of the Sky Gold Sect. Compensating him with a saber was not too much, right? Thinking of this, he felt even more confident. Greed immediately appeared in his eyes. However, this greed only lasted for a moment. The Sky Gold Sect's motto was that everything had to be righteous. Even if it was to snatch someone else's treasure, there had to be a valid reason. This was deeply engraved in their bones. Thinking of this, he ordered the Sky Gold Sect's disciples. Surround this brat. The Heavenly Gold Sect disciples only recovered from the shock of seeing Immorse instantly kill the colossal dragon evil spirit after hearing his shout. They quickly spread out and surrounded Immorse in the middle. The Sky Gold Sect's Grand Elder said, "Brat, you killed more than 70 of my Sky Gold Sect's elite disciples and my personal disciple. I wanted to kill you for revenge, but the Sky Gold Sect has always been on good terms with Han Jianxing, so I'll spare your life. However, you have to compensate the Sky Gold Sect with this saber so that I can answer to the Sky Gold Sect's disciples." At this moment, Immorse was also in a state of shock. Although the system had explained to him that the dragon-slaying saber had an absolute restraining effect on the dragon's body, soul, energy, dragon consciousness and other aspects. However, he did not expect it to be so restrained. The giant dragon evil spirit, which even a level 1 Grand Desolate Master did not dare to touch, was killed in one strike. This was too exaggerated. This dragon-slaying saber was indeed a treasure. Seeing the Sky Gold Sect's disciples surrounding him, the Sky Gold Sect's Grand Elder said some high-sounding nonsense. A cold smile appeared on the corner of Immorse's mouth. How could he not know what the Sky Gold Sect's Grand Elder was thinking? If you want to snatch the saber, just do it. What nonsense are you spouting? The Great Elder of the Heavenly Gold Sect saw that Immorse only sneered and did not reply. Immediately, the anger in his heart burned even brighter. "Since you're so stubborn, don't blame me for being merciless." As he spoke, his aura suddenly surged. Like a tsunami, it pressed down on Immorse. At the same time, hundreds of kilometers away by the river, Han Jianxing, who had a full beard, paused slightly as he was about to take a sip of wine. In fact, when these people appeared, he had already sensed them. Naturally, he also sensed the situation Immorse was in. Of course, he knew that Immorse knew that he was nearby. Therefore, he had been waiting for Immorse to speak from the moment these people attacked. In the past, Immorse had helped him find his daughter, and he had made a promise to Immorse. He could help Immorse once. From the beginning, he had been waiting for Immorse to speak. Especially when the evil dragon appeared, he felt that Immorse would definitely speak. However, the result was beyond his expectations. This kid actually killed the evil dragon with a single slash. This was really an eye-opener for him. Even he, who was not afraid of the evil dragon, did not want to get into trouble like this. The evil dragon could not cause much harm to him, and he could not kill the evil dragon either. In this regard, this kid was indeed quite capable. Now this kid was facing danger. If he spoke, he would be able to rush over in an instant and save this kid from danger. However, he did not expect this kid to have no intention of looking for him from the beginning until now. Therefore, he naturally would not rush over to save him. Who could he blame if he was courting death? It would be a pity if such a talent died. However, what did that have to do with him? Who asked him to be unwilling to speak? At this moment at the scene, the powerful aura that was like a mountain pressed down on Immorse. To be honest, Immorse would definitely not be able to withstand such an aura. He was about to summon the Azure Dragon clone. However, at this moment, another mighty long way suddenly attacked everyone from all directions. Moreover, this long way was 10 times or even 100 times stronger than the long way of the evil dragon. In everyone's hearts, it rose up like the sky and covered the earth. A bone-deep fear was born in everyone's hearts. This kind of fear made them unable to even think of running away. Therefore, all the Heavenly Gold Sect disciples knelt on the ground and shivered. Even the Great Elder of the Heavenly Gold Sect did not kneel on the ground, but his body also began to tremble. When he raised his head to look, he saw huge shadows rising from the grassland as far as his eyes could see. A dragon evil spirit. 2 giant dragon evil spirits. 3 evil dragon spirits. Hundreds and thousands of evil dragon flapped their wings and soared into the sky. The bone-chilling feeling came from the hundreds and thousands of dragon evil spirits. Just one evil dragon had almost wiped out all the Heavenly Gold Sect disciples. Now there were hundreds and thousands of evil dragon. Even the great elder of the Heavenly Gold Sect felt his scalp go numb. He looked at the disciples who were prostrating on the ground and did not dare to move. While he was shocked, he hurriedly pressed the micro-wormhole transportation device. In the next moment he transformed into a blue-white ball of light and disappeared instantly. As for the Heavenly Gold Sect disciples, they did not dare to use the micro-wormhole transportation device earlier because the Great Elder was here. No one dared to escape. Now that the Great Elder had escaped, they could naturally escape too. However, no one escaped. Under the immense psychological pressure of Longwei, they could not even think of escaping. Among all of them, the only one who was not suppressed by Longwei was Immerse. He was also a bloodthirsty demonic dragon. He could also produce Longwei. The Longwei of the evil dragon would naturally not affect him at all. Seeing that the hundreds and thousands of evil dragon spirits were about to kill these people, Immerse hurriedly used his telekinesis to kill the 2 level 10 telekinesis masters among the Heavenly Gold Sect disciples. However, it was a pity that level 10 telekinesis masters were no longer qualified. After killing 2 level 10 telekinesis masters, he did not even gain a single kill point. As for the others, they were basically level 7 to level 8 telekinesis masters. With Immerse's current dragon will, he could not kill them all. At this moment, the hundreds and thousands of evil dragon were already flying over. Even the few evil dragons at the front had begun to condense their energy to bombard it down. Immerse panicked. They were his people. Only he could kill them. At this thought, he swung the dragon-slaying saber on his shoulder. The saber shone brightly. Chapter 422. On the blade of the dragon-slaying saber, a brilliant light shone. A chaotic light that was black and white, but also neither black nor white, was suddenly released. In an instant, it enveloped an area of more than 10 kilometers. In the next moment, Immerse faced the hundreds and thousands of giant dragon evil spirits and leaped up. In the air, the bones on his back creaked. A pair of wings tore through the flesh on his back and stretched out. This pair of wings was about 5 meters wide. On the wings there were more than 10 holes of various sizes. It looked dilapidated, but it gave off a strange, mysterious and powerful feeling. At this time, Han Jianxing, who was hundreds of kilometers away, was stunned when he saw Immerse's pair of wings. He could be considered to be experienced and knowledgeable, but he had never seen such a pair of wings. This pair of wings, from the general outline, looked a bit like the wings of the Blood Clan. However, there were so many holes on it, which was very surprising. Moreover, this pair of wings seemed to give off a feeling of having passed through the vicissitudes of time. What kind of wings was this? The moment Immerse spread out his wings, the hundreds and thousands of giant dragon evil spirits seemed to have felt some kind of aura. The weaker ones hurriedly flapped their wings and fled into the distance. The stronger ones seemed to have gone crazy as they flew towards Immerse. Immerse flapped his wings and raised the dragon-slaying saber high up. With a loud shout, "Die!" Following this shout, the dragon-slaying saber swept across. Whoosh! An invisible saber chi swept across half of the sky in an instant. The giant dragon evil spirits that were flying towards Immerse were cut in half by the saber chi after pausing for 3 seconds. In the next moment they instantly disappeared into the sky. With one slash, hundreds of giant dragon evil spirits were instantly killed. This scene caused all the disciples of the Heavenly Gold Sect to be dumbfounded. In their sect, the strongest person was the sect master. But even their sect master could only take a detour when he saw the giant dragon evil spirits. But this guy was actually able to kill hundreds of them with one slash in the face of so many giant dragon evil spirits. This was simply too exaggerated. Han Jianxing, who was hundreds of kilometers away, was also surprised when he saw this scene. This kid's saber was indeed powerful. But no matter how powerful he was, he couldn't possibly kill over 100 evil dragons with a single slash, right? Even a level 2 Grand Desolate Master like him could not do it. Naturally, he didn't know why Immerse was able to unleash such terrifying power. Firstly, he had the dragon-slaying saber in his hand, which specialized in subduing giant dragons. Secondly, it was because Immerse had evolved into a bloodthirsty demon dragon. If he only had the dragon salure, he would not be able to unleash its strongest power. The dragon salure was used to slay dragons, and the bloodthirsty devil dragon also specialized in slaying dragons for fun. If the bloodthirsty demon dragon used the dragon salure, how could the dragon have a good time? But even so, Immerse was still shocked by the sudden change in the situation. The power of this dragon salure was truly formidable. Since the dragon slaughtering saber was so powerful, it naturally had to slaughter all of these giant dragon evil spirits. Thus, Immerse waved his dragon slaughtering saber in the sky and continuously chased after those huge dragon evil spirits. Those that had escaped dozens of kilometers away, he flapped his wings and could catch up to them in an extremely short period of time and kill them. Immerse, who was hiding underground, hacked his saber at the ground. The saber chi went deep into the ground and even the evil spirits were cut in half. The giant dragon evil spirits were wailing like ghosts and howling like wolves. It was a tragic sight. The disciples of the Heavenly Gold sect were all stunned. In the past, they had only heard of giant dragon evil spirits chasing after humans. Who would have thought that one day, there would be a human holding a huge butcher's knife and chasing after these giant dragon evil spirits on the giant dragon ancient battlefield? However, in the midst of their confusion, someone still reacted. He saw that Immerse had already chased after them for dozens of kilometers. He hurriedly shouted to the other disciples in a low voice, "Run!" As he spoke, his right hand had already pressed on the wormhole teleportation device. Seeing this, the other disciples also took out the wormhole teleportation device. However, at this moment, a figure suddenly appeared under their feet. It was the spirit-devouring beast. In their panic, these people did not notice the appearance of the spirit-devouring beast. The spirit-devouring beast opened its mouth. Suddenly, dozens of tentacles appeared in its mouth. These tentacles instantly extended and swept over the hands of these people. Hundreds and thousands of tiny tentacles extended from its tentacles and wrapped around the wormhole teleportation device in these people's hands. Then, with a sudden tug, it swallowed the wormhole teleportation device into its mouth. All of this took a long time to describe, but in fact it happened in an instant. These people did not even have time to react. By the time they reacted, the spirit-devouring beast had already jumped hundreds of meters away. These people's expressions changed drastically. They had already seen Immerse's teleportation ability before, and their fastest speed was only 1,000 meters per second. This was child's play compared to Immerse's teleportation ability. Therefore, the wormhole teleportation device was their only hope if they wanted to escape. However, the spirit-devouring beast had swallowed the wormhole teleportation device. Wasn't this cutting off their escape route? Catch it! A disciple of the Heavenly Gold sect yelled. The other disciples of the Heavenly Gold sect heard this and hurriedly ran forward, trying to catch the spirit-devouring beast. However, although the spirit-devouring beast was not very powerful, it was very good at escaping. It directly burrowed into a hole in the ground and did not come out no matter how much energy they released into the hole. These people saw that Immerse was about to kill all the giant dragon evil spirits and became more and more anxious. They even used genetic martial arts to create a huge ravine that was 10 meters wide, 1,000 meters long, and over 20 meters deep in the ground. Even so, they could not find the spirit-devouring beast. What should we do? A disciple of the Heavenly Gold sect wiped his sweat and asked fearfully. Another disciple of the Heavenly Gold sect said, "What else can we do? If we don't escape now, when will we? Can we escape? That kid can teleport. It's still better than waiting for death here." However, at this moment, a disciple stopped these people. He was the calmest among the 100 disciples of the Heavenly Gold sect. He said, "We can't escape at all. Why don't we all join forces and fight that kid to the death?" Someone shook his head and said, "Fight to the death? Didn't you see how terrifying that kid was when he killed the evil spirits? Fight to the death with him? It's like ants fighting to the death with an elephant. No, it's worse than ants fighting to the death with an elephant." That calm disciple shook his head and said, "From what I saw, that kid didn't seem to have such terrifying combat power when facing our Grand Elder. When the Grand Elder's aura exploded, that kid didn't seem to be able to resist at all. However, when facing these giant dragon evil spirits, his combat power seemed to be off the charts. I'm guessing that the sword in his hand is specially made to restrain the giant dragon evil spirits. After he said that, everyone thought about it and realized that this was indeed the case. At this moment, everyone seemed to see a glimmer of hope. Chapter 423. At that moment, everyone seemed to have seen a glimmer of hope. However, this hope was still rather slim to them. If they did this, they might still have a chance of survival. If they did not do this, they would definitely die. Fight! A disciple shouted. Fight him! There are so many of us. I don't believe we can't beat him. That's right. No matter how strong he is, he's only a level 2 desolate hunter. We have so many level 7 and level 8 desolate hunters. Can't we beat him alone? These people gave themselves a boost of adrenaline and started to condense their genetic weapons. The calmest disciple of the Heavenly Gold sect said, when he comes over later, we'll all activate our energy weapons at the same time and give him a fatal blow. As they spoke, Immorse had already killed all the giant dragon evil spirits. Then he flapped his black, tattered wings and flew towards the Heavenly Gold sect disciples. Clearly, he did not intend to give these Heavenly Gold sect disciples any chance. Hence, the calmest disciple of the Heavenly Gold sect shouted, "Energy weapon!" At this moment, everyone's genetic weapons glowed red and white and turned into energy weapons. The next moment, everyone's energy weapons shot out red and white light at the same time. Whoosh 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 whoosh. More than 100 red and white light pillars shot towards Immorse. Seeing this, Immorse teleported and dodged the red and white light pillars. These people changed their direction again and the red and white light pillars continued to attack Immorse. Immorse once again teleported and appeared behind all of them. These people turned around again and aimed their energy weapons at Immorse. However, when they aimed their energy weapons at Immorse this time, they were all stunned. Immorse had already disappeared. What appeared in front of them was a giant dragon. This giant dragon was not as huge as the giant dragon evil spirits. It was only 100 meters long. However, this giant dragon was a real giant dragon. Every black scale on its body had a diameter of 3 meters. Under the sunlight, it shone with a metallic luster. The dragon's claws were 5 meters long and shone with a cold light. There were dozens of javelin-like bone spurs on the dragon's head. This made its already ferocious head even more ferocious. A pair of blood-red eyes, so red that it seemed as if blood could drip out. It had a dragon tail that was dozens of meters long, thick and powerful. On its back, there was a triangular ridge that resembled a blade, extending from its neck to the end of its tail. Its most distinctive feature was its pair of wings. This pair of wings with a wingspan of more than 80 meters actually had many holes of various sizes. It was as if he had casually found 2 broken pieces that had not been repaired for a long time and hung them on the wing bones. The disciples of the Heavenly Gold sect had seen Immorse disappear, but a huge dragon had appeared. He then looked at the dragon's wings, which were almost identical to Immorse's wings except for the size. They were all dumbfounded. That kid had turned into a giant dragon? Could a human become a dragon? Not even the most ridiculous stories they had ever heard were so ridiculous. This was simply inconceivable. Han Jianxing, who was more than 100 kilometers away, finally opened his eyes wide and stood up. He had roamed the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud for dozens of years. He had seen a lot of strange things. However, he had never heard of a human turning into a giant dragon. In all the stories, humans were humans and dragons were dragons. He had never heard of a human becoming a dragon. Speaking of which, this kid could actually become a dragon. No wonder he, a mere level 2 desolate hunter, dared to come to the ancient dragon battlefield alone. It seemed that he had really underestimated him. Previously, no matter how talented he was, Han Jianxing had not put him in his eyes. After all, Han Jianxing himself was a person with great talent. Could be said that in terms of talent he was the ceiling. He had never seen a person with greater talent than him. He had not cultivated for dozens of years, yet he had risen from a level 1 desolate master to a level 2 desolate master. From this, it could be seen how abnormal his talent was. Therefore, no matter what kind of genius he was, they were all bullshit in his eyes. But now, Immorse was actually able to transform into a dragon. This was what really surprised him. The moment Immorse transformed into a dragon, Most of the Heavenly Gold sect disciples were dumbfounded. He even stood there in a daze, staring at the 100-meter-long dragon. The calmest disciple was also a little confused. After all, in the eyes of humans, dragons were synonymous with power. They might not have been able to defeat this kid, but now he had transformed into a dragon. How could they fight? But they had to fight even if they couldn't. Energy weapon. He shouted loudly, waking the rest up. Everyone hurriedly aimed their energy weapons at the dragon. Whoosh 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 whoosh, hundreds of energy weapons blasted towards Immorse. Immorse did not dodge. Boom 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 boom. These hundreds of energy weapons blasted onto Immorse's body. They kept exploding into balls of fire. Visually, the dragon that Immorse had transformed into could no longer be seen. He could only see balls of fire exploding at the place where he had been standing. But even so, these Heavenly Gold sect disciples did not stop. Their energy weapons blasted onto Immorse's body, creating new balls of fire. Boom 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 boom. Just like that, the bombardment went on for 3 minutes. The calmest disciple raised his right hand, signaling for everyone to stop. After everyone stopped for more than 10 seconds, they saw a figure slowly emerge from the flames at the spot they had blasted. The 100-meter-long dragon was intact, except for its tattered wings. Everyone subconsciously took a few steps back. With so many of them attacking at the same time, even a level 1 Desolate Master would not dare to take it head-on. But this dragon did not dodge and used its body to take on the strongest attacks of over 100 people. The strength of his body was too abnormal. Han Jianxing, who was more than 100 kilometers away, shook his head and sighed, "What a strong body." In the sky, Missouri sure gently flapped his wings while secretly rejoicing in his heart. He did not dodge just now because he wanted to test the strength of his bloodthirsty demon dragon body. One had to know that the greatest strength of a dragon was its terrifying body. If the bloodthirsty demon dragon's body could not withstand the energy weapons of these level 7 and 8 Desolate Masters, it would be too disappointing. Fortunately, the results did not disappoint him. He could feel that the scales of the bloodthirsty demon dragon could withstand any attack below a level 1 Desolate Master. Not to mention it had a pair of tattered wings. This pair of wings could also withstand any attack below a level 1 Desolate Master. Chapter 424. The reason why Immorse didn't dodge the attacks of these people was because his scales weren't just for show. His defense was quite strong. Secondly, he had a pair of wings. Although the wings were tattered, they could still withstand any physical and energy attacks below the level of a level 1 Grand Desolate Master. With such double insurance, he could naturally try his luck. In Immorse's opinion, if a giant dragon could not even withstand the attacks of a mere Desolate Master, his scales should be removed and thrown into the rubbish bin. At this moment, seeing that he was fine, Immorse opened his mouth wide. A dragon roar came from his throat. Roar. Roar. This dragon roar was intimidating. This made all the Heavenly Gold sect disciples' faces change drastically. Run. At this moment, the calmest disciple could no longer stay calm. With a loud shout, he turned around and fled into the distance. What a joke. So many of them had attacked, but the giant dragon's body had withstood it. If they did not escape now, were they waiting to become its dinner? However, Immorse did not give them the chance to do so. More than 500 meters away, he opened his huge mouth. Boom. A gust of scorching energy came out of his mouth. Red flame dragon breath. This scorching dragon breath instantly engulfed the ground within a radius of 100 meters. It engulfed all the Heavenly Gold sect disciples. Ah. No. Save me. The ground had turned into a sea of fire. Screams of the Heavenly Gold sect disciples could be heard from the sea of fire. But after a short 10 seconds there were no more screams. At the same time, the string of numbers representing kill points in Immorse's mind had changed frowny face kill points. 4011000. Looking at the sea of fire on the ground, Immorse could not help but sigh in his heart. Giant dragons were indeed much stronger than humans. As a level 2 giant dragon, he was much weaker than these humans in terms of level. But with the strength of his body, he could crush these Desolate Masters who were 5 or 6 levels higher than him. This was the strength of a giant dragon. After killing all the Heavenly Gold sect disciples in one move, his kill points had increased by more than 100. It was a pity that there were too few Sky Gold sect disciples. If there were more, wouldn't he be able to advance again after one move? However, Immerse knew from the memories of these people that they were only disciples of the Heavenly Gold sect. There were also more than 100 disciples from the Heavenly Wood sect and the Heavenly Water sect. In total, there were more than 300 people. Thinking of this, Immerse couldn't help but feel excited. Glancing at the grassland below, he flapped his wings and flew toward the entrance of the ancient battlefield of the Great Dragon. No matter what secrets or treasures there were in this grassland, they had to be put aside for the time being. To the current Immerse, there was nothing more valuable than killing points. He flapped his wings and flew forward quickly. He was not running at full speed. Even so, it could still reach over 1,000 meters per second. At the same time, in the outside world, in the Heavenly Gold sect of Cloud State, the Great Elder had already returned to the Heavenly Gold sect using the wormhole transportation device. He had already found the sect leader and reported what had happened at the ancient dragon battlefield. Sect Master, I've already ordered everyone to use the wormhole teleportation device to escape. However, they still haven't returned. It's obvious that they don't have a chance anymore. Almost all the dragon evil spirits have appeared at the ancient dragon battlefield. If they don't return immediately, they won't be able to return anymore. At this point, the Great Elder's voice became lower and lower. The sect master frowned when he heard this. The Heavenly Gold sect was indeed the most powerful sect in the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud. They had more than 300 elite disciples who were level 5 desolate hunters and above. This was a very rich sect. However, more than 200 elite disciples had already died at the ancient dragon battlefield. This was definitely a huge blow to the Heavenly Gold sect. Great Elder, you are responsible for this, the sect leader of the Heavenly Gold sect said. The Great Elder looked guilty. Sect leader, it's indeed my fault for not being able to bring them back. I'll accept any punishment from you. However, compared to punishing me, what's more important now is to plan ahead. In my opinion, that kid Immerse is very strange. Although the chances of him surviving in front of thousands of dragon evil spirits aren't high, he still needs to be prepared. We've already formed a deep grudge with him. If he really escapes alive, he'll definitely come to the Heavenly Gold sect to seek revenge. The Heavenly Gold sect leader scoffed. It's fine if he doesn't come. However, if he dares to come to the Heavenly Gold sect, he won't be able to return alive. After the report, the Heavenly Gold sect leader said, since the ancient dragon battlefield is so dangerous, immediately inform the Heavenly Wood sect and Heavenly Water sect to withdraw all disciples. We've suffered great losses. We can't let them suffer with us. Yes. The Great Elder of the Heavenly Gold sect immediately contacted the Heavenly Water sect and Heavenly Wood sect. Soon, at the entrance of the ancient dragon battlefield, the Heavenly Wood sect and Heavenly Water sect leaders who were guarding there received the news. When they saw this, their expressions changed. They didn't expect that after the Great Elder of the Heavenly Gold sect brought more than 100 elite disciples into the ancient dragon battlefield, everyone except the Great Elder was wiped out. Now that the Great Elder of the Heavenly Gold sect had escaped, there was no point for them to guard here. After a simple discussion, the two of them ordered the disciples. All Heavenly Wood sect and Heavenly Water sect disciples, activate the wormhole transportation device and return. The Heavenly Wood sect and Heavenly Water sect disciples couldn't wait to return. One must know that the most terrifying thing in the ancient dragon battlefield was the giant dragon evil spirits in the 4th zone. Now that those giant dragon evil spirits had gone crazy, when were they going to leave? Therefore, they all took out the wormhole transportation device. However, at this moment, a roar suddenly came from afar. Roar, roar. They had heard such a roar many times in the ancient dragon battlefield. Evidently, it was the roar of a dragon. However, in the ancient dragon battlefield, the roar of a dragon would only be heard at night. They had never heard it during the day. When the roar of a dragon was heard, everyone felt a chill in their hearts. The roar of a dragon was too oppressive for them. However, this was only secondary. After the roar of a dragon was heard, boom 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 boom, everyone's wormhole teleportation devices exploded one after another. Everyone was startled. The Heavenly Wood sect and Heavenly Water sect leaders were also shocked. Sound wave attack. That's right. This was Immerse's sound wave attack. He already had the skill of a sound wave attack a long time ago. However, as his strength increased, the power of the sound wave attack became less and less impressive. However, in this situation, using the sound wave attack to destroy these people's wormhole transportation devices was pretty good. Chapter 425. Following the dragon's roar, the wormhole teleportation devices of everyone from the Heavenly Wood sect and the Heavenly Water sect exploded. Just as everyone was alarmed, someone suddenly pointed to the distant horizon. In the distant sky, a figure was flying over at high speed. At first it was just a black dot. Soon the black dot became bigger. Gradually it became bigger and bigger. Only then did everyone see clearly that it was actually a huge dragon. It was not the phantom of a huge dragon evil spirit, but a real huge dragon. A huge dragon with tattered wings. Everyone felt a chill in their hearts. Huge dragon. Didn't the huge dragons go extinct tens of thousands of years ago? What's going on? Is it an illusion? While everyone was puzzled and frightened, Immerse had already flown above them. When everyone saw this 100-meter-long dragon, they felt an inexplicable sense of insignificance. It was as if they were ants in front of this creature. They even had the urge to kneel down and worship it. When the two sect masters saw this, they suppressed the fear in their hearts and shouted to everyone, "I wonder where this huge dragon came from." However, its strength is clearly lower than a grand desolate master. Disciples, don't panic. Let's work together to slay the dragon. When they said the words, slay the dragon, the two sect masters could not help but feel a sense of pride. Since ancient times, huge dragons were the symbol of mystery and power. As for dragon slayers, they were even more admirable. Now what the two of them were going to do was exactly what the dragon-slaying warriors had done. How could this not make the two of them feel proud? In fact, their feelings were not wrong. After Immerse evolved into a bloodthirsty demon dragon, he was invincible against anyone below the Grand Desolate Master level just based on his physical strength. However, he had only evolved for a short period of time and was only considered a young dragon. If they were to fight face to face, he would not be a match for a Grand Desolate Master. The two sect masters each took out a weapon. One wielded a saber while the other wielded a sword. They all looked like highly advanced weapons. On the saber and sword, a fiery red glow appeared. After reaching the Grand Desolate Master level, one could add energy to their weapons to fight. Although using energy could cause large-scale damage, the lethality was not very strong. On the other hand, when energy was added to a weapon, the damage it could inflict on the enemy was extremely terrifying. Hence, after becoming a Grand Desolate Master, one would have to find a suitable weapon to use. Immerse sneered when he saw this. Do you think that I'm afraid of you just because your weapons are equipped with energy? That's right, you're right. However, who didn't have dozens of trump cards? Thinking of this, Immerse's mind moved. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared beside him. This figure was actually 2,000 meters long. Such a huge Weiwei gave these humans a strong sense of oppression. From its silhouette, Weiwei looked like a giant snake. However, there were 2 lumps on its head. 4 thick and powerful claws making people shudder. Although dragons had appeared on the flaming continent before, there had never been a Wuxia divine dragon. There wasn't even a legend of the Wuxia dragon god. Therefore, these humans, including the disciples of the Heavenly Wood sect and Heavenly Water sect, had never seen such a monster before. Heavens, what kind of monster is this? I've never seen a desolate beast like this. The 2 sect masters also had a bad feeling at this moment. In front of this strange creature, they could feel a sense of oppression. It was the sense of oppression when they were obviously not a match for it. Then, in the sky, the sea dragon clone moved. It suddenly turned around and its huge tail smashed directly at the 2 sect masters on the ground. Seeing this, the 2 sect masters knew that they couldn't dodge. They could only hurriedly condense an energy light shield in an attempt to resist this guy's tail. Bang! A huge sound was heard. The sea dragon clone's huge tail smashed into the ground. The 2 sect masters were smashed directly into the ground. Only the upper half of their bodies were still above the ground. And the protective light shields on their bodies were directly shattered. Both of their heads and faces were covered in blood. The expressions of all the disciples changed drastically when they saw this. These 2 Grand Desolate Masters were their pillars of support. They were the strongest people here and also their pillar of support. And now, in front of this creature, their pillar of support was smashed to the point of bleeding. How could this not make them panic? Immorse controlled the sea dragon clone and didn't give them the slightest chance to resist. It snaked down from the sky. Its huge claws directly grabbed at the two of them. The two of them obviously still wanted to resist for a little while. But before they could complete their resistance, the sea dragon clone's huge claws had already caught them. Even the ground above them was torn by this big guy's sharp claws, creating two huge ravines that were 1,000 meters long, 100 meters wide and more than 10 meters deep. As for the two of them under the sea dragon clone's sharp claws, they were directly thrown far away. They flew for a full 2 kilometers before falling to the ground. At this time the two of them no longer had any aura on them. The sea dragon clone's seemingly ordinary claw actually contained the power of lightning. Don't forget that the sea dragon could release electricity. When the electricity hit the two of them, dozens of tentacles protruded from the sea dragon clone's claws. Each tentacle pierced deeply into the bodies of the two people. It devoured their blood. Therefore, when the two of them fell to the ground, they had already become two dried corpses. This scene was not detected by Han Jianxing, who was thousands of kilometers away. Otherwise, even he would be surprised. After all, he was only a level 2 Grand Desolate Master. And this creature's level was completely the same as his. And because of the advantage of physical strength, the sea dragon clone's combat strength had already surpassed his. At this time, the disciples of the Heavenly Water Sect and the Heavenly Wood Sect were all panicking. Even their greatest pillar of support had been killed by this huge creature with a single claw. How could they be any better? Especially in front of this huge creature, they would feel a sense of oppression from the bottom of their hearts. This made them unable to even think of resisting. The only thing they could do now seemed to be to run. So these 200 people immediately scattered and fled in all directions. At this time, the sea dragon clone did not make any more moves. When the sea dragon clone killed the enemy, Immorse would not get kill points. He would only get kill points when he was in human form or bloodthirsty demon dragon form. So he let the sea dragon clone clean up the 2 Grand Desolate Masters first. He would leave the rest to him. Chapter 426. Immorse first let the Azure Dragon Avatar deal with the 2 Grand Desolate Masters before flapping its wings and chasing after the Heavenly Wood Sect and Heavenly Water Sect disciples. More than 30 people were killed by the Red Flame Dragon Breath. Another Profound Ice Dragon Breath and another 70 people were frozen into ice cubes. In the legends, these people had only heard of Ice Attribute Dragons and Fire Attribute Dragons. Ice and fire were completely incompatible. They did not expect this dragon to be able to control both ice and fire types. They could not defend against it even if they wanted to. When one used ice type to defend, it used fire type to attack. When one used fire type to defend, it used ice type to attack. In the end, these 200 people were all killed by Immorse. His kill points increased once again. Kill points, 6541000. Seeing that he was just short of 300 killing points, he would be able to level up again. Immorse had already thought about where he would go to get more kill points after leaving the Ancient Dragon battlefield. Naturally, he would go to the Heavenly Gold Sect, Heavenly Wood Sect and Heavenly Water Sect. Of course, the Heavenly Fire Sect and Heavenly Earth Sect were on the same side as these 3 sections. It would be best if these 2 sects also came over to join in the Muddy Waters. Then he would be able to capture them all in one fell swoop. At this moment, the people of the 16 Serene Cloud prefectures would never have imagined that the elite disciples of the 3 sects would be killed by a level 2 Desolate Master. At this moment, only 1/3 of the elite disciples of the 3 sects were left. Immorse was not in a hurry to leave the Ancient Dragon battlefield to find them. Instead, he returned to the 4th district. Logically speaking, risk and reward went hand in hand. The greater the risk, the greater the reward. In the Ancient Dragon battlefield, the 4th district was the most dangerous, so the reward would definitely be the greatest. He was going to spend some time to investigate this place thoroughly. While Immorse was investigating the 4th district of the Ancient Dragon battlefield, in the Heavenly Wood Sect and the Heavenly Water Sect, after sending out the news, their elders had already arrived at the teleportation hall in the sect. They were waiting for the sect leader and the rest to return. However, after half an hour, not only did the sect leader not return, but even the disciples did not return. This caused these elders to be secretly anxious. First elder, why aren't the sect leader and the rest back yet? Do you think? A disciple asked. Shut up. The great elder lectured, you've cultivated for so many years, yet you're still so impetuous. How can you accomplish great things? The disciple quickly lowered his head and said, yes. The great elder continued, in short, we've already sent out the message. When the sect master and the others will return will depend on the decision made at the last minute. Is this something a junior like you can guess? The disciple lowered his head again. Yes. After another 3 hours, the great elder began to feel anxious. Logically speaking, even if the sect master and the others weren't coming back for the time being, they should have at least sent him a message. But 3 hours had passed and there was still no news. Could it be that something had really happened? However, as the Grand Elder, when the sect master was not around, he had to hold down the entire sect. Naturally, he could not reveal his thoughts. When the disciples beside him saw that the Great Elder was able to keep his composure, they could not help but secretly admire him. As expected of the Great Elder, he could still maintain his composure under such circumstances. If it were him, he would have panicked long ago. It seemed that he still had to learn more from the Great Elder in order to improve. 2 hours later, the Great Elder had already begun to walk. In fact, he also wanted to contact the sect master and ask what was going on. However, the sect master hated people who restricted his freedom the most. Even asking would infuriate him. Therefore, under normal circumstances, the sect master would not say that he was going out for a few hours. Even if he was out for a few days, he did not dare to ask. So until now, he did not dare to send a message to the sect master to ask about the situation. When the disciple beside him saw this, he was puzzled. Could it be that the Great Elder could not keep his composure anymore? He could not help but ask, Great Elder, what are you? The Great Elder glared at the disciple and scolded, I ate a little too much just now. I need to exercise to digest. The disciple quickly lowered his head. Yes. He also blamed himself in his heart. He still had to learn more from the Great Elder. After another 2 hours, seeing that the sky was already dark, the Great Elder could no longer hold it in. Fine, let the sect master be angry. He directly dialed the number of the sect master's multifunctional watch. The disciple beside him was puzzled. Great Elder, didn't you say to stay calm? The Great Elder glared at the disciple and said in his heart, the sky is already dark. Stay calm, my asterisk. But on the surface he replied, it's about time. The disciple pondered for a moment before nodding. Soon the Great Elder had already dialed the number. However, after a full minute, there was still no reply from the other side. Then he dialed a second time, a third time, and a fourth time. Still there was no reply. His heart could not help but thump. Next he dialed the number of the second elder and the third elder who had followed the sect master to the ancient dragon battlefield. However, there was still no reply. The Great Elder panicked even more. Could it be that the sect master and the others had really met with trouble at the ancient dragon battlefield? Now the second elder and the third elder had followed the sect master to the ancient dragon battlefield. He, the Great Elder, was the only one left in the sect. If something really happened, he did not even have a single person to discuss it with. If he really wanted to discuss it, he could only discuss it with the Heavenly Gold sect and the Heavenly Water sect. Thinking of this, he wanted to call the Heavenly Water sect's Great Elder. However, before he could do so, the Heavenly Water sect's Great Elder called. What's the situation at your Heavenly Wood sect? Has everyone returned? The Great Elder's heart thumped again. He asked in return, what about you? The Heavenly Water sect's Great Elder sounded anxious. No, not a single one has returned. The sect master did not return either. Also, we can't contact anyone. The Great Elder's expression turned even more solemn. Same for us. With this, both sides could guess what had happened. The two Great Elders felt their legs turn to jelly. Their sect masters were both level 1 Grand Desolate Masters. If the other disciples died, they still had a chance to rise again. However, if something were to happen to the two sect masters, then their two sects would probably decline from then on. Then what do we do now? The Heavenly Water sect's Great Elder asked. The Heavenly Wood sect's Great Elder pondered for a long time before saying, wait here. I'll go to your sect and discuss this matter properly. The Heavenly Water sect's Great Elder nodded. Okay, I'll wait. It seemed that this was the only way now. Turning back, the Heavenly Wood sect's Great Elder said to the disciple beside him, call back all the elite and core disciples who are still outside the sect. Close the gates tightly. The disciple beside him also knew that this was a serious matter. He hurriedly lowered his head and replied, yes. At the same time, Immerse continued to investigate the ancient dragon battlefield. Chapter 427. While the Heavenly Wood sect and Heavenly Water sect were panicking, Immerse had already returned to his human form and was continuing his exploration of the ancient dragon battlefield. There were no more evil dragons here, so there was no danger. Immerse was searching every inch of the battlefield. Han Jianxing, who was over 100 kilometers away, was also doing the same. However, his focus was on Immerse. Although he was surprised that Immerse had single-handedly exterminated all the evil dragons, he knew that Immerse had relied on the saber in his hand to do so. But now, Immerse was actually able to transform into a dragon. This was far beyond his expectations. How could he not be surprised that such a mysterious creature like the dragon could actually appear in the real world? As far as the people of the Flaming Origin continent knew, the dragons had been extinct for tens of thousands of years. They only existed in the history books and legends. Who would have thought that this fellow could actually transform into a dragon? Even someone as experienced and knowledgeable as Han Jianxing couldn't help but be shocked. Immerse, who had transformed into a dragon, had single-handedly killed over 100 level 7 and level 8 desolate hunters with the power of a single dragon. This truly showed how terrifying a dragon's combat strength was. Immerse searched the 4th district for a full 5 hours before finally discovering something. The 5th district looked like a plain, but in fact it was more than 10 meters below the ground. In fact, it was all underground caves. The largest of these caves were 1,000 meters long and 1,000 meters wide. The smaller ones were only 10 meters long and 10 meters wide. Moreover, each of these underground caves had many holes. These holes extended in all directions, connecting all the caves. No one knew how big the underground cavern was or if there were any good things inside. Even though Immerse had the strength of a level 7 psychic master, it was impossible for him to explore all of these caves in a short period of time. However, Immerse had created 100 doppelgangers that entered the caves through different holes. The doppelgangers spread out in all directions to explore the caves. Although the strength of these clones was not as strong as his main body, they were still very strong. However, the doppelganger's draconic will had also reached level 5, allowing it to scout out a range of 250 kilometers. Therefore, with 100 virus clones, the efficiency of the investigation was very impressive. 2 hours later, they finally found something. In one of the caves, a corpse was found, the corpse of a dragon. When Immerse passed through more than 50 underground tunnels and arrived in front of the giant dragon's corpse, he couldn't help but feel excited when he saw the 300-meter-long giant dragon's corpse. After all, this was his first time seeing a real dragon. Although it was a corpse, the dragon's scales were dark red in color. The entire body of the giant dragon was perfectly preserved. The dragon's scales, head, claws, fangs, and spikes were all perfectly preserved. Most importantly, the dragon's corpse did not show any signs of drying up. It didn't look like it was dead at all. It looked more like it was asleep. Even though Immerse was a giant dragon standing in front of this giant dragon, he couldn't help but feel a sense of oppression. Immerse couldn't help but exclaim in his heart, was this a real giant dragon? It seemed that compared to a real giant dragon, he still lacked a sense of dominance and deterrence. However, Immerse couldn't be blamed for this. It hadn't been long since he evolved into a giant dragon. It was impossible for him to have the dominance and deterrence of a giant dragon in such a short time. This was like a monkey that had just evolved into a human. He definitely couldn't get rid of the various monkey habits for the time being. While exclaiming in amazement, Immerse began to use his draconic will to investigate this giant dragon in detail. Being immortal after tens of thousands of years, there must be something special about this giant dragon. Just over 10 minutes later, Immerse discovered something strange. He saw that there was a piece of bone about 1 meter long on the spine of this giant dragon. This piece of bone was different from the rest of the bones. It was obviously connected later. In terms of color and shape, it didn't look like something this giant dragon should have. However, looking at that piece of bone, Immerse felt that it was somewhat familiar. And he reacted. The incomplete dragon vein. Previously, he had obtained a piece of incomplete dragon vein. The shape and color of this small piece of dragon bone looked similar to that of the incomplete dragon vein. This discovery made Immerse's heart tremble. Because according to the previous legends, the incomplete dragon vein was obtained from the ancient dragon battlefield. There was a big secret on the incomplete dragon vein. If he could mend the incomplete dragon vein, he would discover this big secret. Thinking of this, Immerse moved his mind and took out the incomplete dragon vein from the miniature world. He saw that this incomplete dragon vein and the incomplete dragon vein in this giant dragon's body could be combined into a complete dragon bone. Seeing this, he couldn't help but feel a little excited. The incomplete dragon vein was finally going to be completed. He immediately wanted to use his sharp claws to cut open the giant dragon's body and take out the incomplete dragon vein. However, a moment later he realized that his sharp claws couldn't cut open the giant dragon's body. Even if he activated the invisible force, he could only leave a shallow wound on the surface of the giant dragon's body. Even though it had been dead for tens of thousands of years, the scales on the surface of the giant dragon's body were still terrifyingly hard. Immerse had no choice but to take out the dragon's salure. He stabbed at the giant dragon's back. Puff! The dragon's salure easily pierced through the giant dragon's scales. It pierced through its skin again. With a light slash. Swish! A 5-meter-long gash was drawn out. As expected, the dragon's salure was simply made for slaying dragons. Every scale of the giant dragon was more than 10 centimeters thick. And the dragon's skin inside these scales was actually half a meter thick. It was no wonder that Immerse's sharp claws were unable to penetrate it. What surprised Immerse was that when he cut open the giant dragon's body, he discovered that there was actually blood gushing out from the wound. After 10,000 years, there was still blood in this giant dragon's body. It was as if it had just died. Immerse couldn't help but be a little tempted. "System, can I collect this blood?" The system replied, "Although the bloodthirsty demon dragon is known as bloodthirsty, it doesn't need to absorb the blood of other giant dragons. The bloodthirsty demon dragon's evolution only requires continuous slaughter." Immerse nodded, "You're right." As he spoke, he took out 10 pure buckets, poured out the clean water inside and collected the giant dragon's blood. Although the system said that it was useless, this was the blood of a real giant dragon after all. Perhaps it would come in handy in the future. After collecting 10 buckets of giant dragon's blood, Immerse used the dragon salure to continue expanding the wound, and slashed towards the dragon vein on the giant dragon's back. After all, the dragon vein was the most important thing right now. Chapter 428. After Immerse collected 10 buckets of dragon blood, he used the dragon slaying saber to expand the wound to the incomplete dragon vein. After all, compared to the dragon blood, the dragon vein was more important. It wouldn't be too late to collect the dragon blood after taking out the dragon vein. Soon he used the dragon slaying saber to cut open the flesh inside and found the incomplete dragon vein. This incomplete dragon vein was pure black, completely different from the other bones of the dragon. Immerse used the dragon slaying saber to cut off the dragon bones at the two ends of the dragon vein and took out the incomplete dragon vein. At this moment, a scene that he had never expected occurred. After losing the incomplete dragon vein, the giant dragon's corpse quickly shriveled up. The blood in its body also directly vaporized. In just half a minute, the huge dragon's corpse shriveled into a mummy. It was even worse than a mummy because the bones in its body had also turned into powder. Immerse couldn't help but be stunned. He secretly regretted it. If he had known this would happen, he would have collected more dragon blood just now. However, looking at the 10 buckets of dragon blood in the plastic bucket, Immerse was still quite satisfied. In the legends of the Flaming Land, a drop of dragon blood could cause a catastrophe in the cultivation world. But now Immerse had a total of 10 buckets. Now he was truly awesome. Next, Immerse looked at the 2 incomplete dragon veins in his hands. He tried to put the 2 incomplete dragon veins together. However, after trying, he realized that he couldn't put them together at all. He kept feeling that something was missing. It turned out that each of these 2 incomplete dragon veins was only 1/3 of a complete dragon vein. If he wanted to obtain the complete dragon vein, he still needed to find the last 1/3. Immerse couldn't help but feel like he had F***ed up. Helpless, he could only place his hopes on signing in. Perhaps he could sign in for the last 1/3 of the dragon vein. "System, sign in." The system's voice sounded in time as usual. Frowny face, sign in successful. Sign and location: Ancient Dragon Battlefield, Underground Dragon Cave. Sign in reward: Dragon Binding Rope. Dragon Binding Rope? Immorse frowned slightly. He was a little disappointed that he couldn't sign in for the last 1/3 of the dragon vein. He focused his attention on the dragon binding rope in his backpack. The dragon binding rope looked like an ordinary iron chain. There was nothing special about it. Dragon binding rope, specially crafted to bind dragons, can completely withstand the enormous power of the giant dragon. While binding the giant dragon, it can release neurotoxins that suppress the giant dragon's power. At the same time, it can prevent the giant dragon from releasing its energy. After reading the description of the dragon binding rope, Immorse's brows relaxed. Being able to bind a dragon was indeed very impressive. However, the system gave him the dragon slaughtering saber and the dragon binding rope. Would he have to be enemies with the dragon clan in the future? But it didn't matter. The bloodthirsty demon dragon had long since become the enemy of all dragons. Thinking of this, Immorse's heart actually gave birth to a trace of anticipation. He was looking forward to the day when he could fight against the entire dragon tribe with his own power. Of course, this was the bloodthirsty demon dragon's mentality. As for the current stage, Immorse was still developing as wretchedly as possible. Before clashing with the dragon clan, he had to improve his strength as soon as possible. Following that, Immorse carefully searched the entire underground dragon cave a few more times, but he didn't find anything else. Only then did he teleport and arrive on the ground. Looking at his kill points. 6541000. He only needed 300 more kill points to level up again. Where could he get the kill points? That was naturally the heavenly gold, heavenly wood, and heavenly water sects. Of course, he had to return to the flaming beginning continent first. Thinking of this, with a thought, he took out the wormhole teleportation device. He pressed the teleportation button. In the next moment, his body turned into a blue and white ball of light and disappeared from the ancient dragon battlefield. Not long after he left, a 5-meter-long giant sword quickly descended from the sky. On the giant sword was the bearded Han Jianxing. He closed his eyes slightly and felt for a moment. Finally, he opened his eyes and looked at the ground. His gaze seemed to be able to penetrate the ground and look into the depths of the ground. After a moment, he slowly said, "As expected, you still couldn't escape this calamity." It turned out that Han Jianxing had long known that there was a giant dragon corpse underground. He also knew that there was a dragon vein in the dragon's corpse. Years ago, when he first came to the ancient dragon battlefield, he had brought his wife with him. At that time, he had discovered the dragon vein. In order to obtain the dragon vein, he had entered the underground dragon cavern alone. Because the underground dragon cavern was too dangerous, he had asked his wife to stay on the surface. But who would have thought that this parting would be an eternal farewell? When he was fighting the evil spirits in the underground dragon cavern, he suddenly had a bad premonition. He hurried back to his wife's side, only to find that she had already collapsed in a pool of blood. He was extremely sorrowful. After burying his wife, he stood guard here for a full 3 years. No one knew how he had spent these 3 years. 3 years later, he returned to the flaming beginning continent. He found the culprit who had killed his wife. He killed his way to the culprit's sect. In the end, 19 sects that were implicated in this matter were annihilated. Within these sects, there were a total of 32 Grand Desolate Master experts. But they were all killed by him alone. Since then, Han Jianxing's name had spread far and wide. But because of his wife's death, Han Jianxing was disheartened. Apart from raising his daughter, he no longer had the desire to reach a higher realm. As for the dragon vein that he had almost found, he no longer had the heart to look for it. Over the years, he had seen many experts in the ancient dragon battlefield who had died in the 4th district in search of the dragon vein. He had been watching coldly from the side. In his opinion, other than himself, no one else could take the dragon vein away. But now Immorse had taken it away. Could it be that he was about to witness the rise of a legend in his life? Or was he going to witness the birth of a peerless demon? This kid didn't seem like a bad person. But when it came to killing people, his viciousness was absolutely shocking. Whether he became a legend or a devil, it was all up to him. As for whether he should stop him or not, Han Jianxing had no intention of doing so. From the moment his wife died, his heart had died. In this world, he cared about no one other than his daughter. Whether Han Jianxing became a legend or a demon, it had nothing to do with him. Thinking of this, he tilted the wine pot in his hand and spilled half a circle on the ground. Farewell. Then he tilted his head back and gulped down a few more mouthfuls of wine. He leaped onto the giant sword and flew back to his wife's grave. At this time, Immerse had already returned to the first hunting island. The coordinates of his wormhole teleportation device were on the first hunting island. Chapter 429. Immerse returned to Hunting Island number 1. He planned to take a short rest here before heading to Skygold Sect, Skywood Sect and Skywater Sect. Everyone on Hunting Island number 1 was excited to hear that Immerse had returned. They all came to welcome him. After Immerse rested for a night, Guojutao came to report early the next morning. In the base, there are more than 30,000 people who have broken through to the level of hunter. It is estimated that in 3 years at most all the people in our base will be able to break through to become hunters. Guojutao said with exultation. When Immerse brought these people from Earth, Immerse was the only one who had become a hunter. Most of them were zombie hunters, and even grand hunters were rare, let alone scavenger hunters. In less than 2 years, there were more than 30,000 people who had become hunters. This was all thanks to the Dragon Palace. However, Immerse still felt that it was a little too slow. He was now in contact with the top 100 forces in the 16 states of Ghost City. Among these forces, the weakest ones were hunters. Each force had at least 20 to 30 hunters. Large sects like the Skygold sect had hundreds of desolate hunters. In comparison, the power of Dragon Palace was too weak. It seemed that he had to strengthen the construction of Dragon Palace as soon as possible to improve the strength of the people in Dragon Palace. Thinking of improving strength, Immerse could not help but think of the dragon blood he had obtained before. If he distributed the dragon blood to these people, would their strength be greatly improved? Of course, the dragon blood could not be directly absorbed by these people. The energy contained in the dragon blood was far from what these people could accept. Therefore, the dragon blood had to be diluted to the extent that their bodies could bear it. It should be known that before Immerse had absorbed the dragon's blood, he had been injected with countless enhancers and consumed countless body modification fluids. Only then could he directly devour the dragon's blood. Thinking of this, Immerse went to find Guojutao. He took out a bucket of dragon blood. Seeing that Immerse filled the bucket with bright red liquid, Guojutao could not help but ask in confusion, "Mr. Mo, this is?" Immerse did not answer directly. He took out a small bottle that was 5 centimeters tall and poured some water into it. 10,000 times diluted with water, or 100,000 times diluted with water. Distribute it to everyone. Guojutao was speechless. As it turned out, there was no accurate number. Immerse added, "Before you distribute it to everyone, let's find a few people with higher realms and strength to test." Guojutao had never doubted Immerse's words. He immediately called a few people over and diluted the blood-red liquid. Then he distributed it to several level 5 scavengers. After the level 5 hunters took it, they felt a hot energy flowing through their bodies. They were going to cultivate immediately. If they did not cultivate and circulate their energy, their bodies would most likely explode. On the second day, both of them leveled up 3 times. Furthermore, the effects of the medicine had yet to fully take effect. In the following days, the two of them improved extremely quickly. Seeing that the effects of the medicine were so good, everyone became excited. However, these 2 level 5 hunters needed to quickly circulate their energy so that their bodies would not explode. Therefore, the hunters would not be able to use it directly. Guojutao could only let people divide the medicine into several batches. One batch was diluted with water at a ratio of 10 times and given to the scavengers. The other batch was diluted with water at a ratio of 100 times and given to the grand hunters. And so on. Finally, Immerse let Guojutao and the others, whose realms were fixed at level 1 scavengers, take the dragon blood as well. As a result, they broke through one after another. This made them very happy. They thought that their cultivation would be fixed at level 1 scavengers for the rest of their lives. They did not expect that there would be a day when they would break through. The blood-red liquid that Mr. Mo brought back for them was really amazing. Moreover, this kind of liquid was not a small bottle but a plastic bucket of pure water which was filled to the brim. In other words, this liquid was enough for everyone in the base to use for a very long time. It could be said that their path of advancement in the future would be smooth sailing. How could this not make them excited? If they knew that there was not 1 bucket of this dragon blood but 10 buckets, what would they think? In the next 5 days, more than 20 people in the Dragon Palace broke through and became scavengers. At this rate, the Dragon Palace could cultivate more than 100 scavengers within a month. It should be known that even a large sect like the Heavenly Gold sect would need at least 200 years to cultivate more than 100 scavengers. Now, the Dragon Palace could cultivate more than 100 scavengers within a month. This speed was really exaggerated. Of course, Immorse also gave Happy dragon blood. However, Happy's body was like a rock and could not absorb the dragon blood at all. This made Immorse speechless. Was it so difficult to become an oracle? While everyone in the base was excited about being able to quickly improve their strength, an uninvited guest came. This person was none other than the female manager of the 10th hunting island. When Immorse went to the 10th hunting ground previously, he had seen this person in the hall of the 10th hunting island. Moreover, this person was not weak. She was a level 7 scavenger. This female manager was slightly plump. She had shoulder-length hair. The way she walked was like a penguin swaying from side to side. She entered the first hunting island. While looking around, she secretly estimated the strength of the first hunting island. In her opinion, the strength of hunting island number 1 was far inferior to that of hunting island number 10. However, after entering the first hunting island, she found that it was just an old impression. The current hunting island number 1 had changed a lot compared to before. Especially in the first hunting island, there were more than 30 people who were training. Their auras had reached the level of scavengers. A poor place like the first hunting island could produce scavengers. Moreover, there were so many of them in one go. This really surprised her a little. However, she soon put away her surprise. He came with a mission today. Even if there were 200 scavengers on the first hunting island, she had to complete the mission, not to mention that there were more than 20 scavengers on the first hunting island. Thinking of this, she straightened her plump back. He came to the workshop where Immorse was. She glanced around the workshop and finally fixed her eyes on Immorse. He looked Immorse up and down. He was a little surprised. The owner of the first hunting island was a little young. The two did not exchange any pleasantries. The woman said directly, "You are the owner of the first hunting island, right?" Immorse nodded. The woman continued, "We suspect that you are related to the murder of the Heavenly Gold sect disciple Yi Bufan. Please come with me to assist in the investigation." Chapter 430. The slightly plump woman went straight to the point. "We suspect that you are related to the murder of Yi Bufan, a disciple of the Sky Gold sect. Please follow me back to the 10th hunting island to assist in the investigation." As soon as these words were spoken, everyone present was stunned. The 10th hunting island was not to be trifled with, and the Sky Gold sect was a colossus in the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud. Mr. Mo killed a disciple of the Sky Gold sect? This was going to be troublesome. Of course, as members of the Dragon Palace, they had to protect the Dragon King. Guju Tao smiled apologetically. "Manager Lu, you must have made a mistake. The Sky Gold sect is the boss of the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud. How could our island owner?" Speaking up to hear, Immorse waved his hand to stop Guju Tao. Then he looked at the woman with a smile. He said slowly, "That's right. I killed him." As soon as these words were spoken, the entire place fell silent. The members of the Dragon Palace knew that Immorse might have killed the disciple. However, they did not expect Immorse to admit it so easily. What kind of place was the Sky Gold sect? It was the boss of the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud. Offending the Sky Gold sect was equivalent to offending the Heavenly Wood sect and the Heavenly Water sect. These 3 sects were the top 3 forces in the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud. Mr. Mo actually admitted it without even thinking about it. This was too bold of him. The woman was obviously stunned as well. She was expecting the island owner of the first hunting island to quibble. She was very experienced in dealing with people like him. She had thought of dozens of explanations and methods to deal with Immorse's quibbling. Therefore she came here with a well-thought-out plan. However, she did not expect Immorse to admit it directly. This caught her off guard. However, since he had admitted it, things would be easier. "Since you've admitted it, it's even easier. You don't have to go to the 10th hunting island. Just follow me to the Sky Gold sect. I'll hand you over to them. The woman's expression and tone were icy cold. The disappearance of the Sky Gold sect disciple on the 10th hunting island had nothing to do with them. After all, they had signed a life and death agreement before entering the hunting ground. However, the Heavenly Gold sect was a massive force. If they really wanted to say that they were related to the 10th hunting ground, the 10th hunting ground wouldn't dare to say anything. Moreover, if the 10th hunting ground could make use of this opportunity to establish a relationship with the Sky Gold sect, it would be greatly beneficial to the future development of the 10th hunting ground. Therefore, when the owner of the 10th hunting ground learned of this matter, he immediately ordered his men to bring Immerse back for interrogation. If it was really Immerse's doing, he would hand him over to the Sky Gold sect. Now that Immerse had admitted it, they would bring him directly to the Sky Gold sect. Seeing this, Guojulong wanted to step forward and stop them. Immerse smiled faintly and said, "I will go to the Heavenly Gold sect. However, I have to rephrase my words." The woman was surprised again. This guy killed a disciple of the Sky Gold sect and still wanted to go to the Sky Gold sect? He was not playing by the rules at all. She snorted coldly. "No matter what you say, you have to follow me to the Heavenly Gold sect today." Immerse smiled faintly and continued, "In a few days I will kill my way to the Sky Gold sect and wipe them all out." After hearing Immerse's words, the surrounding disciples of Dragon Palace all looked at Immerse in disbelief. No matter how much they trusted Immerse, how could Dragon Palace be compared with the Sky Gold sect? Not to mention killing his way to the Sky Gold sect and wiping them all out. The woman was also stunned by Immerse's words. Was this guy too arrogant or crazy? He looked at Immerse from head to toe and then looked at Immerse's workshop. She sneered and said, Just with your #1 hunting island?" Immerse shook his head and said, "Just with me." The woman could not help but laugh. "Young man, you don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. I admit that you have some strength. However, you want to challenge the entire Sky Gold sect by yourself? Do you think you are Han Jianxing?" Just as she said this, her multifunctional watch rang. The woman answered the video call. It was the owner of the #10 hunting island. The woman quickly stopped smiling and said respectfully, "Hello, island owner." The owner of the #10 hunting island asked, "Have you arrived at the #1 hunting island?" The woman glanced at Immerse and replied, "Yes, I have found the owner of the #1 hunting island and he has admitted his crime. I plan to take him to the Sky Gold sect now." The owner of the #10 hunting island suddenly changed his expression and said, "Don't go to the Sky Gold sect. Come back right now." The woman was stunned. "Island owner, what about me? Just come back when I tell you to. Cut the crap." The woman was stunned again. Why did the island owner suddenly become so fierce? He was not like this before. "Okay, island owner, I'll come back right now." As for the owner of the #1 hunting island, the owner of the #10 hunting island said, "Don't worry about it. Come back right now." The woman frowned slightly. She had rushed here for half a day and now she had come back empty-handed? The island owner did not hide from the others and said directly, "According to the news I just received, the Sky Gold sect has met with a great disaster. They lost 2/3 of their elite disciples in the ancient dragon battlefield. The Heavenly Wood sect and the Heavenly Water sect also lost 2/3 of their elite disciples. And their sect masters are still uncontactable. It is very likely that they have all died in the ancient dragon battlefield." Hearing this, the woman was shocked. What was going on? The owner of the #10 hunting island continued. According to reliable sources, the owner of the #1 hunting island has been to the ancient dragon battlefield before. When the woman heard this, her expression immediately changed. She took 2 steps back subconsciously and looked at Immerse. No matter how stupid she was, she could connect the dots based on the news that the owner of the #1 hunting island might have something to do with this. 2/3 of the elite disciples of the 3 sects were hundreds of level 5 and above hunters. There were even 2 grand desolate masters who did not return. But only the owner of the #1 hunting island had returned. What did this mean? In addition, the owner of the #1 hunting island had said that he was going to kill his way to the Sky Gold sect and wipe them out. She guessed at a result that was unthinkable. If she heard someone else say this 2 minutes ago, she would only find it funny and think that the person was crazy. But now things were developing in an even more ridiculous direction. What she had seen and heard with her own eyes was all true. One could imagine how much of a psychological impact this would have on her. Her face turned pale and sweat started to form on her forehead. She had looked down on this small island and the owner of the #1 hunting island. Now it seemed that she was really digging her own grave. Digging her own grave. She could not help but take another step back. She said incoherently to Immerse, "Hug, hug." Immerse sneered, "You want to hug me now? It's too late." Chapter 431. After the woman realized that everything was done by Immerse, she was no longer as arrogant as before. Her face was pale and she subconsciously took 2 steps back. She stuttered, "Hug, hug. Now you want to hug? It's too late." Immerse sneered. In his right hand a genetic weapon had already condensed. It was a huge axe with a very flashy design. However, Immerse's genetic weapon was completely different from the flame dragon axe. At this moment the axe was completely black. In the middle of the axe was a huge skull. The eyes of the skull were flashing with a fiery red light. The handle of the axe was in the shape of a human leg bone. The entire axe gave off a demonic aura. Immerse's entire body was filled with a bloodthirsty aura. Seeing this, the woman was even more frightened. "I'm sorry. As she spoke, she saw that Immerse had already raised his axe. She quickly turned around and fled. However, just as she turned around, she felt a chill on her neck. She felt that she was flying. She saw that everything around her was moving away from her. Even her body was moving away from her. It turned out that she was not flying. Instead, it was her head that was flying. At this point, this arrogant woman could no longer be arrogant. Guojutao and the others beside Immerse were shocked when they saw this scene. This woman was a level 5 desolate hunter. However, she was killed by Mr. Immo in 1 move. Mr. Immo had only been in the ancient dragon battlefield for 2 months, and his strength was already so strong. Immerse kept his genetic weapon and turned to Guojutao. "Guard the base well. I'm going out." Guojutao quickly nodded. "Yes." After speaking, he raised his head. Immerse had already disappeared. Guojutao looked at the corpse lying in a pool of blood and could not help but sigh. Mr. Immo was definitely the most talented person he had ever seen in his life. There was no other. Not only was his leveling speed terrifying, but his combat strength was also terrifying. He was only a level 2 desolate hunter, but he was able to kill a level 5 desolate hunter who was 3 levels above him. This was just the tip of the iceberg. The heavenly gold, heavenly wood, and heavenly water, the 3 colossi of the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud, had 2/3 of their elite disciples. Even the sect masters of the heavenly wood and heavenly water sects, existences at the Grand Desolate Master Realm, had been killed by Mr. Immo. This was almost like killing an enemy who was a whole realm higher. If it were anyone else, it would be unimaginable. But Mr. Immo did it. This was truly terrifying. With such a Mr. Immo, why would the Dragon Palace not be able to grow stronger? Hunting Island number 10. After the island master finished his conversation with the woman, he felt uneasy. He called the security chief of Hunting Island number 10 and said, "Ask all the hunters outside to come back. Also, ask some mercenaries to come back." The security captain was somewhat puzzled. "Island master, we have more than 100 desolate hunters on the 10th hunting island. It is more than enough to protect the entire hunting island. Could it be that the enemy is a Grand Desolate Master?" The owner of the 10th hunting island shook his head. "Not enough. Hire more mercenaries." "Then, how much?" The owner of the 10th hunting island replied, "Hire all the desolate hunters. The more the better." The security captain was even more surprised. "Desolate hunters are very expensive." The owner of the 10th hunting island shook his head. "Do it." The security captain did not know what kind of crisis the island was facing, but he still nodded his head doubtfully. "Yes, island master." At the same time in the Heavenly Water Sect. After the disciples of the Heavenly Water Sect returned, the entire passageway leading up and down the mountain had been sealed. The teleportation hall had also been closed. Even a bird could not enter the Heavenly Water Sect. At this moment, without the sect master, only a few elders were left to manage the situation. "Elder, should we activate the protective mountain array?" a disciple asked. The fourth elder shook his head. "The protective mountain array consumes too much energy. If we can avoid activating it, we should try not to. It won't be too late to activate it when the enemy invades." Their protective mountain array had been set up by their sect master at a great cost. It could withstand the attack of a level 1 Grand Desolate Master. And such a level of protective mountain array consumed a terrifying amount of origin crystals. Every minute it was activated, it would consume tens of thousands of origin crystals. Even though the Heavenly Water Sect was the third largest sect in the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud, they only had less than 10 million origin crystals in their storage. How could they withstand such a torment? Hence, unless it was a critical moment, they would not dare to activate the protective mountain array. The fourth elder continued, "Increase the number of people patrolling day and night. Once this person appears, alert immediately." As he spoke, he turned on his multifunction watch and projected Immerse's face. Everyone firmly imprinted Immerse's ordinary-looking face in their minds. Half an hour after the disciples of the Heavenly Water Sect became nervous, a figure suddenly appeared in the Heavenly Water Sect. This person was none other than Immerse. The disciples of the Heavenly Water Sect had underestimated Immerse's teleportation ability. Hence, they did not have time to activate the protective mountain array. The moment Immerse appeared, his dragon consciousness spread out. Boom, 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 boom. Instantly, all the disciples of the Heavenly Water Sect who were below the level of Desolate Hunter exploded. It was like setting off firecrackers during the New Year. When their bodies exploded, the blood mist that rose up was like the smoke from setting off firecrackers. In the Heavenly Water Sect, a Desolate Hunter had just raised his cup to drink water. Suddenly, boom, not far away, a level 10 Desolate Hunter immediately exploded. The Desolate Hunter was shocked. "Oh no, there's an enemy attack." Just as he opened his mouth, boom, 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 the bodies of the other disciples beside him also exploded one after another. In just a few seconds, all the Desolate Hunters around him had exploded into blood mist. The scene was so strange and horrifying that it was the first time he had seen something like this. The rest of the Desolate Hunters of the Heavenly Water Sect were experiencing the same thing. They could only watch helplessly as their disciples and friends exploded into a bloody mist, unable to do anything about it. As for the Desolate Hunters, they watched helplessly as their disciples exploded into blood mist. The next moment it would be their turn. They all fled in panic. But could they escape? Immerse's dragon consciousness could cover a radius of 350 kilometers. Who among them could run 350 kilometers in a matter of seconds? Not a single one. When the fourth elder of the Heavenly Water Sect saw this scene, he knew that the enemy had a powerful Psyche Master or even a spiritual Psyche Master. He could not help but feel despair. If the enemy only had a Psyche Master, it would be fine. If they had a spiritual Psyche Master, there was nothing they could do. This was because spiritual Psyche Masters were extremely rare. Even in the 1,000-year history of the Heavenly Water Sect, there had only been one spiritual Psyche Master. Now there was not even one spiritual Psyche Master in the sect. Chapter 432. The Heavenly Water Sect did not even have a single spiritual Psyche Master. The first elder of the Heavenly Water Sect was in despair. The Heavenly Water Sect currently had about 100 hunters. The remaining 100,000 people were all scavenger hunters. Under the spiritual psyche attack of a spiritual Psyche Master, the hunters had no chance of surviving. If all the hunters died, they would only have about 100 hunters left. In that case, the Heavenly Water Sect would have to wait for a long time before it could be revived. However, the fourth elder of the Heavenly Water Sect soon realized that his worries were unfounded. This was because the 100 or so desolate hunters were about to die. The entire Heavenly Water Sect was about to be destroyed, so there was no need to worry about revival. In just half a minute, the 100,000 hunters of the Heavenly Water Sect had all exploded into a bloody mist. Immerse looked at the killing points in his mind. Killing points, 7831000. He frowned slightly. The hunters were really worthless. He had killed more than 100,000 hunters, but he had only obtained about 100 killing points. This meant that he could only obtain 1 killing point for every 1,000 hunters he killed. The fourth elder was a level 10 desolate hunter. Seeing that all the desolate hunter disciples had been killed, he couldn't help but sigh in relief. He was extremely furious. Under such circumstances, it was obvious that he could not escape. He ordered the hunters of the Heavenly Water sect, "Everyone, get ready to activate the mountain-destroying formation." The Heavenly Gold sect had a mountain-destroying formation other than the mountain protection formation. The mountain-destroying formation was equivalent to a self-destruct program. Once it exploded, the entire mountain would be razed to the ground. This was a method to perish together with the enemy. It was usually used to threaten enemies who were too powerful. The fourth elder looked at Immerse from afar. He was extremely indignant. "You killed more than 200 elite disciples of the Heavenly Water sect, 3 of our elders, a sect leader, and more than 100,000 of our ordinary disciples. Now you still want to kill us all? If that's the case, we'll perish together with you. Once the mountain-destroying formation is activated, the entire mountain will be razed to the ground. You won't be able to escape." Immerse stopped and looked at the fourth elder. He smiled faintly. "You can try." As he spoke, he moved. Poof. A desolate hunter was pierced by his sharp claws. Poof. Another hunter's head flew into the air. Seeing this, the Xianxia sect's fourth elder roared, "Activate the mountain-destroying formation." Immediately, the elite disciples of the Heavenly Water sect raised their right hands with bloodshot eyes. Genetic martial arts condensed in their right hands. Next, their genetic weapons lit up with red and white light. This red and white light shot out from their genetic weapons and gathered in the sky. Then a blood-red light shield slowly formed in the sky and covered the ground. Immerse sneered when he saw this. "You want to die with me? Are you worthy?" As he spoke, his figure flashed again. Poof. A desolate hunter who was holding an energy weapon high in the air had his back slashed open. Chi. The other desolate hunter's entire right arm was chopped off by Immerse's sharp claws. At this moment, his entire right arm was 3 times thicker than usual. It was covered with black scales. Under the sunlight, the sharp claws at the end of the claws shone with a cold light. It looked exceptionally sharp. Schwa. A claw slashed towards a level 4 desolate hunter. That level 4 desolate hunter hurriedly raised his energy weapon and tried to block it. However, when his energy weapon met Immerse's dragon claws, it was as if he had met a high-speed train. He was immediately sent flying hundreds of meters away. He crashed through 5 walls before falling to the ground. There wasn't a single bone in his body that was in perfect condition. Immerse kept killing these desolate hunters. Not to mention those who were 1 or 2 levels higher than him. Even those who were 3 or 5 levels higher than him, or even 6 or 7 levels higher than him, were like paper under his sharp claws. And without the support of these disciples, the energy shield in the sky that was covering the ground quickly retreated. Seeing this, the fourth elder's eyes turned bloodshot. He roared, "Kid, you've gone too far." As he spoke, the energy weapon on his right arm shone brightly. The red and white light shrouded his entire body. The next moment, a red and white pillar of light shot up into the sky from his body. In the sky, the energy shield that was about to dissipate turned upside down once again. And this time the speed was more than 10 times faster than before. It turned out that the fourth elder could activate the mountain-destroying formation by himself. And the speed at which he activated it was much, much faster than when the other disciples worked together. It was just that this was at the cost of his life. And when he activated the energy shield, it could not be interrupted. Immerse saw that the energy shield was quickly descending, and his dragon claws slashed towards the fourth elder. Unexpectedly, the fourth elder's body was covered with a fiery red energy. When Immerse's dragon claws slashed on it, it was as if they were slashing on metal. Could not cause any fatal damage. The fourth elder's eyes were wide open. He laughed loudly as if he had gone crazy. "Kid, when I activated the mountain-destroying formation at the cost of my life, it could not be interrupted at all. You will be buried with us, haha." Immerse saw that the energy shield was less than 10 meters away from completely covering the entire mountain. He snorted coldly and his body suddenly changed. The bones in his body kept cracking. His body was rapidly growing. The clothes on his body were constantly making hissing sounds, as if they were bursting apart from being stretched too much. The dragon scales on his right claw also started to spread all over his body. In just a few seconds he had turned into a giant dragon that was more than 120 meters long. When everyone saw this they were all dumbfounded. Giant dragon. There really is a giant dragon. The giant dragons did not go extinct. The fourth elder of the Heavenly Water sect was also in a daze. The knowledge that he had received since he was young did not know that the giant dragons had been extinct for tens of thousands of years. And based on the current situation, whether it was now or in the future, there would not be any giant dragons in this world. But now a living giant dragon was standing in front of him. This was a strong blow to his worldview. The giant dragons had not gone extinct. The giant dragons really existed. Immorse turned into a giant dragon. He felt that his body was full of surging power. He wanted to roar to the sky. But this was not the ancient battlefield of the giant dragons. If he was too high profile, it would inevitably cause a lot of unnecessary trouble. So Immorse suppressed the urge to roar. He flapped his wings and flew towards the fourth elder of the Heavenly Water sect. Faced with the attack of a giant creature that was more than 100 meters long, the fourth elder panicked. Think about it. No matter who it was, how could anyone not panic when faced with a giant dragon that was more than 100 meters long and whose head was bigger than a house? Chapter 433. Immorse transformed into a 100-meter-long dragon and flew towards the fourth elder of the Heavenly Water sect. Although the fourth elder of the Heavenly Water sect was prepared to die, he still panicked in the face of such a huge monster. He wanted to turn around and escape. It was like a person who wanted to commit suicide, but faced with the sudden appearance of a giant python he would instinctively feel fear. He was not afraid of death, but he was afraid of the giant python. However, the fourth elder of the Heavenly Water sect could not back down now. He was in an invincible state when he was burning his life to activate the mountain-destroying array. However, he could not move or stop. Once he moved or stopped, he would immediately explode and die. He could only suppress the fear in his heart and hope that he was in an invincible state. He hoped that the dragon would not be able to hurt him when he was in an invincible state. Rumble, just as he was thinking about this, Immorse's right claw had already grabbed him. Even the ground under his feet, which was more than 100 square meters, was shattered by his claw. As for the red and white energy surrounding the first elder of the Heavenly Gold sect, it could not stop Immorse at all. What a joke. Immorse was in his dragon form. The fourth elder's invincible state was only relative to humans. Hence, his invincible state could not stop Immorse. He was crushed into meat paste by Immorse's claw. As soon as the fourth elder died, the huge energy shield that was about to cover the entire mountain dissipated in the sky. When the other elders saw this, they looked at the giant dragon that Immorse had transformed into and spat out a ball of flame energy. More than 50 desolate hunters screamed in pain in the flames. They were filled with despair. Facing such a powerful creature, they couldn't even bring themselves to perish together with it. They could only watch as it massacred the last few elite disciples of the Heavenly Water sect. However, these elders did not have to despair very soon. They would not feel despair again in their lives. This was because Immorse's sharp claws had already reached their heads. In less than 10 minutes, the Heavenly Water sect, which was ranked third in the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud, was destroyed by Immorse. From the looks of it, the so-called rankings and the so-called forces were worthless in the face of absolute strength. After wiping out all the disciples of the Heavenly Water sect, Immorse searched through their stores to see if there was anything of value. In the end, he discovered that there were over 1 million origin crystals in the Heavenly Water sect. They could be used as currency on the Flaming Dawn continent. Generally speaking, electronic currency was used when purchasing ordinary items. However, if one wanted to purchase some extremely precious items, they would have to use crystal source stones. There were already quite a lot of 10,000 crystal origin stones. Immorse transformed into his human form and took out a set of clean clothes from the space. Transforming felt good for a moment, and after that he changed his clothes. It was indeed a little awkward. After changing his clothes, Immorse stored the source crystals in his micro-world. Then with a thought he disappeared from the spot. At this point, this great sect that had prospered for thousands of years had been destroyed by Immorse alone. 10 minutes later, Immorse's figure appeared in the Skywood sect again. The heavenly wood sect's situation was similar to the heavenly water sect's. Therefore, the process of the two sects' destruction was very similar. Both were killed by Immerse's dragon wolf first. Then, when they wanted to activate the protective formation, they discovered that Immerse was already in the mountains. Then Immerse transformed into a huge dragon and started a massacre. Therefore, the Skywood sect was destroyed. In just an hour, the second and third ranked sects of the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud continent had been destroyed. Then, Immerse put away the source crystals in the Skywood sect and disappeared again. At the same time in the Skygold sect, they still had a level 1 spiritual psyche master and 2 level 1 desolate masters. Therefore, they weren't particularly panicked. However, that didn't mean that they didn't take it seriously. In the Skygold sect's meeting hall, the sect master, grand elder, and the other 5 elders all had solemn expressions. This time we lost 2/3 of our elite disciples. The sect's strength will definitely be greatly reduced. We just received news that the Heavenly Water sect was destroyed half an hour ago. The person who destroyed the Heavenly Water sect was that Immerse. The great elder gnashed his teeth in anger. If there was anyone who hated Immerse the most, it was naturally the grand elder. Firstly, his illegitimate son had been killed by Immerse. Naturally, he hated Immerse. Secondly, he had brought so many elite disciples with him, but they had all died in the ancient battlefield of dragons because of Immerse. Of course, he didn't know that those disciples were actually killed by Immerse. However, if it weren't for the fact that they wanted to kill Immerse, those disciples wouldn't have entered the 4th district and wouldn't have been surrounded by the huge dragon evil spirits in the 4th district. Therefore, this debt naturally had to be placed on Immerse's head. He didn't think that if he hadn't taken the risk to bring his disciples into the 4th district to kill Immerse, those disciples wouldn't have been surrounded by the huge dragon evil spirits. The sect master asked, "The Heavenly Water sect was destroyed by that kid alone?" He felt that it was a little ridiculous to ask this question. A sect ranked 3rd in the 16 prefectures of Serene Cloud had been destroyed by a mere level 2 desolate hunter. Even novels wouldn't dare to brag like this. But now such a thing had actually happened. How could he not feel that it was ridiculous? The elder who reported nodded. "I just saw the news. It was sent by a disciple we sent to the Heavenly Water sect for an exchange. It's been half an hour." The sect leader furrowed his brows. This brat is actually so strong that he can single-handedly destroy an entire sect? The Grand Elder said, "Previously it was our Skygold, Skywood and Skywater that had a grudge with that kid. Now that Skywood and Skywater no longer have a Grand Desolate Master overseeing them, that kid's next target is likely to be the Skywood sect." Everyone nodded. The sect master hurriedly said, "Contact the Skywood sect immediately and tell them to make preparations." The Grand Elder nodded and immediately dialed the Skywood sect's Grand Elder's number on his multifunctional watch. After a minute there was no answer. He frowned slightly and then dialed the Skywood sect's second Elder's number. However, after another minute there was still no answer. Then he called the other higher-ups of the Skywood sect, but there was still no answer. At this moment it wasn't just him. Everyone's expression turned ugly. Since so many higher-ups of the Skywood sect didn't answer their calls, it was obvious that something had happened. The entire conference hall was silent. After a full 5 minutes, the Skygold sect master finally spoke. "It seems that something has happened to the Skywood sect. Notify all disciples to enter a level 1 state of alert. Activate the protective array immediately." "Activate it now? Wouldn't it be too wasteful if that kid doesn't come?" an elder said. "Even if it's a waste of large amounts of crystal origin stones, it's still better than letting that kid cause trouble in the Skygold sect." Chapter 434. From the Skygold sect's point of view, Immerse destroying the Skywood sect and the Heavenly Water sect sounded unbelievable. However, this was already the limit. He could only bully the Skywood sect and the Heavenly Water sect because they did not have a Grand Desolate Master. However, the Skygold sect had 2 Grand Desolate Masters. They did not believe that Immerse could challenge these 2 Grand Desolate Masters alone. Although Immerse had killed an evil dragon in the 4th district of the ancient dragon battlefield, he was indeed very strong. However, it was obvious that his saber had an absolute restraining effect on the giant dragon evil spirit. If he fought against a grand desolate master, he would not be that strong. Moreover, the Sky Gold sect had the Mountain Protection Array. The Mountain Protection Array was said to be able to withstand the attacks of a grand desolate master. It could also withstand teleportation skills. Now that they had activated the Mountain Protection Array in advance, no matter how strong that kid was, he would not be able to break it. A 2-meter-thick earthy yellow light barrier rose slowly. It was like a huge bowl that covered the entire mountain. The Sky Gold sect master felt more at ease. Even a grand desolate master like him could not break this Mountain Protection Array. It was impossible for that kid to break it by force. The Sky Gold sect's Grand Elder had a fierce look in his eyes. His thoughts were slightly different from the sect master's. Just blocking that kid was not enough. He was thinking of a way to kill that brat and avenge his son. At the same time, Immortal had arrived 5 kilometers away from the Sky Gold sect. He flapped his demonic dragon wings and looked down at the earthy yellow light barrier. He sneered in his heart. With a thought, he released the Sea Dragon clone. The current Sea Dragon clone had already reached a length of more than 1,300 meters. After Immortal destroyed the Skywood sect, his kill points had reached more than 1,000. With this, he had become a level 3 Desolate Master. As the Sea Dragon clone had swallowed 2 Dragon Ball fragments, it had also become a level 3 Desolate Beast when Immortal had become a level 3 Desolate Beast. It was equivalent to a level 3 Grand Desolate Master. There was not a single level 3 Grand Desolate Master in the entire 16 prefectures. Therefore, the current Azure Dragon clone was absolutely invincible in the 16 prefectures of Serene Cloud. Almost everyone in the Heavenly Gold sect was looking up at the sky. When they saw Immortal appear alone, they sneered in their hearts. Was this guy here to die? However, they soon discovered that a gigantic creature over 1,000 meters long had appeared beside Immortal. The head of this creature looked even more ferocious than the heads of giant dragons they had seen in historical records. Its python-like body gave off a mysterious, terrifying, and powerful feeling. Everyone from the Heavenly Gold sect was shocked when they saw the creature. None of them had ever seen such a creature before. However, they could feel how tiny and vulnerable they were in front of this creature. At this moment, they could only place all their hopes on the protective mountain array that they had already activated. The mountain protecting array was a powerful array formation that could withstand the attacks of Grand Desolate Masters. No matter how strong this creature was, it was unlikely that it could break through the mountain protecting array. At this moment, Immortal ordered the Azure Dragon clone, break the array. The Azure Dragon clone immediately slithered down from the sky. Its tree-like legs carried thick and sharp claws as it slashed at the yellowish-brown mountain protecting array. It did not use any energy. Rumble. The 2-meter-thick yellowish-brown energy barrier was shattered by the claw. There was no suspense. Everyone present, including the Heavenly Gold sect's Great Elder and their sect master, had a terrible expression. This was a barrier that could withstand the attacks of Grand Desolate Masters. However, it was shattered by this creature's claw. Furthermore, it did not even use any energy. It had reached such a powerful level with just its physical strength. Just how strong was this creature? Actually, the Heavenly Gold sect's mountain protecting array could only withstand the attacks of level 1 Grand Desolate Masters. It could not even withstand the attacks of level 2 Grand Desolate Masters, let alone the Azure Dragon clone, which was equivalent to a level 3 Grand Desolate Master. Immortal stared coldly at the Heavenly Gold sect's Great Elder. He ordered the Azure Dragon clone, destroy him. The Azure Dragon clone immediately slithered down. The giant claw slashed at the mountain where the Heavenly Gold sect's Great Elder was. Rumble. The entire mountain where the Heavenly Gold sect's Great Elder was collapsed. The Heavenly Gold sect's Great Elder was crushed into meat paste by the terrifying power of the claw. The Great Elder, a level 1 Grand Desolate Master, was killed instantly. Seeing this, the Heavenly Gold sect's sect master was filled with regret. He was so regretful that his intestines turned green. If he had known this would happen, he would definitely not have allowed the Great Elder to seek revenge on Immortal. Now, not only was the Great Elder dead, but the entire Heavenly Gold sect was also destroyed. Speaking of which, who would have thought that a mere desolate hunter would have such a terrifying and powerful mutated desolate beast by his side? Now that things had come to this, it was too late to say anything. The only thing he could do was to escape. As long as he could keep his life, with his strength as a Grand Desolate Master, he would be able to establish another powerful sect in the 16 prefectures in no time. Thinking of this, he turned around to escape. However, at this moment the sea dragon clone had already blocked his path. Without any hesitation, the huge tail smashed towards the Heavenly Gold Sect's sect master. Seeing that it was too late to dodge, the Heavenly Gold Sect's sect master hurriedly activated his life-saving trump card. Not just one but a total of 5. The 5 life-saving trump cards emitted 5 different colors of light. White, green, black, red, and yellow. Obviously these were the colors of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. The 5 types of energy multiplied and multiplied endlessly. Around his body a 5-colored light shield was formed. However, in the next moment, rumble! The sea dragon clone's huge tail had already smashed into his position. Instantly the mountain he was on crumbled. Huge rocks were sent flying in all directions by the force of the impact. The entire mountain was like a sand sculpture, splattering in all directions. As for the Heavenly Gold Sect's Great Elder, he was smashed into meat paste. The 5-colored light barrier around his body didn't even last for 0.01 seconds. At this point the 2 powerful figures guarding the Heavenly Gold Sect had both been killed instantly. The rest of the Heavenly Gold Sect's disciples felt their legs turn to jelly and their hearts tremble. Even the sect master and great elder, who were the most powerful in the sect, had been killed instantly. What chance did they have? However, Immorse did not let the sea dragon clone attack again. Instead he used his dragon consciousness. He instantly captured the spiritual psyche masters in the Heavenly Gold Sect. Boom boom, the 2 spiritual psyche masters' bodies exploded instantly. Then, they were all the spiritual psyche masters in the Heavenly Gold Sect. The spiritual psyche masters' bodies also exploded continuously like firecrackers during the new year. When the Heavenly Gold Sect's disciples saw this strange scene, they all screamed and turned to escape. Chapter 435. The Sky Gold Sect's Grand Elder and Sect Master were killed instantly. Their spiritual Psyche Masters and Great Psyche Masters were also killed. Following that, the Sky Gold Sect's hunters also exploded. This caused the entire Sky Gold Sect to fall into a terrifying atmosphere. No one knew if they would be the next to explode. Under such a terrifying atmosphere there was nothing else they could do. The only thing they could do was to run. In their opinion they would only not explode if they escaped. Therefore all the Sky Gold Sect disciples fled in all directions. However, how could their speed be faster than Immorse's dragon consciousness? The dragon consciousness covered a radius of 350 kilometers. None of them had the ability to travel 350 kilometers in an instant. Boom 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 boom. Within a few minutes all the scavengers among the 100,000 disciples of the Heavenly Gold Sect had exploded. The entire mountain of the Heavenly Gold Sect as well as a few nearby mountains were dyed red. Other than red, no other colors could be seen. The blood turned into a blood-red mist that covered a radius of more than 50 kilometers. Even the cultivators who were more than 100 kilometers away could smell the stench of blood here. As for the remaining Sky Gold Sect's hunters, they were already scared out of their wits and were fleeing in all directions. However, they still could not escape Immorse's pursuit. Immorse transformed into the bloodthirsty demon dragon again. Now he had evolved into a rank 3 bloodthirsty demon dragon. His true combat strength was invincible under the Grand Desolate Master level. These 100 or so hunters did not even have the will to resist. He had easily killed them in just over 10 minutes. Now the Sky Gold Sect was destroyed. From the time he went to the Heavenly Water Sect to the destruction of the Sky Gold Sect, it had only been 3 hours. No one would have thought that the 3 major sects that had dominated the 16 governors of the remote cloud region for thousands of years would be destroyed in just 3 hours. At this moment, Immorse transformed into his human form again and changed into a new set of clothes. He looked at the kill points in his mind. Kill points, 430100000. He shook his head. For the current him, killing hunters was no longer enough. He had to kill desolate hunters in order to obtain enough killing points. However, there were not many hunters on the Flaming Origin continent. In the entire continent there were at most 10,000 of them. Moreover, these people didn't provoke him. If he killed them as he pleased, How would he be any different from the real bloodthirsty demon dragon? It seemed like he could only head to the 20th hunting ground next. In the 20th hunting ground, the strongest beast was a level 10 mutated wild beast. Most of the desolate beasts were mutated desolate beasts of level 1 and above. That was the best place to get killing points. But before going there, Immorse wanted to find a way to make the spirit-engulfing beast spit out the dragon will that it had swallowed. He could also devour these dragon wills and raise his own dragon wills level. After sorting out his thoughts, Immorse searched through the heavenly gold sect again. Only then did he return to the base. Immorse communicated with the spirit-engulfing beast king and asked, "How do I make you spit out all the dragon intent you've devoured?" The spirit-engulfing beast also possessed a small portion of its dragon will. It communicated with Immorse, "As long as the master is willing, I can spit it out at any time." So simple. Immorse stared at the spirit-engulfing beast. The spirit-engulfing beast immediately replied, "It's that simple." "Then why didn't you say so before?" Immorse asked. The spirit-engulfing beast replied, "I used to be in the ancient dragon battlefield. I was sealed by a human at the ancient dragon battlefield. The seal affected my ability so I couldn't spit it out. But now that I've left the ancient dragon battlefield I can spit it out." Immorse was speechless. So it was that simple. "Then hurry up," Immorse said. The spirit-engulfing beast nodded and opened its mouth. More than a dozen tentacles came out of its mouth. At the same time, balls of dragon will floated out of its mouth. These dragon wills were different from the dragon spirits it had devoured before. They had no energy and could be directly devoured by Immorse's dragon will. Immorse immediately enveloped these dragon wills with his dragon will and activated the dragon will devour skill. Immorse didn't feel anything when he devoured the dragon wills. It was just that the dragon wills were getting stronger. In just 5 minutes, Immorse's dragon will was more than 10 times stronger than before. At the same time a system notification popped up in his mind. Dragon will upgraded to level 8. Immorse couldn't help but feel overjoyed. Back at the ancient dragon battlefield, the spirit-engulfing beast had devoured a lot of dragon spirits. Now the dragon wills in its body were enormous. He had only devoured them for a few minutes and it had already upgraded to level 8. It seemed that his dragon will would upgrade several levels if he devoured all of them. Half an hour later the system notification popped up again. Dragon will upgraded to level 9. 2 hours later the system notification popped up again. Dragon will upgraded to level 10. At this point the spirit-engulfing beast finally stopped spitting out dragon wills. Its body was a little weak and it lay limp on the ground. It looked at Immorse with a pair of big pitiful eyes. It was as if it was saying, "Master, I don't have any more." He stroked the spirit-engulfing beast's furry head and said, "You've worked hard. Go and rest." The spirit-engulfing beast nodded and got up weakly. It found a corner and curled up. At this time, Immorse's dragon will had reached the 10th level. He spread out his dragon will and everything within a radius of 500 kilometers was under his control. A level 10 dragon will was equivalent to the spiritual will of a level 10 spiritual psychic. In this world spiritual psychics were very rare to begin with. Occasionally there would be one or two but they were only level 1 spiritual psychics. It could be seen that Immorse's spiritual power was unrivaled. Moreover, a level 10 dragon will was able to directly blast apart the bodies of any desolate hunters below level 5. In this way it was very beneficial for Immorse when he went to level 20 hunting grounds to collect kill points. After doing all this, Immorse once again rested in the base. Every day he would watch the sunset, enjoy the sea breeze and listen to the waves. It was a comfortable life. During the few days he rested, all the media in the 16 prefectures of Serene Cloud exploded. The news of the destruction of the Heavenly Gold Trisect spread like wildfire on the internet. Breaking news. Heavenly Gold, Heavenly Wood and Heavenly Water Trisect destroyed. Breaking news. The top 3 forces in the 16 prefectures of Serene Cloud destroyed. Freezing 16 prefectures with one sword or making a comeback. Is it the loss of morals or the distortion of human nature? The destruction of the Heavenly Gold Trisect. Immorse looked at the news and laughed in his heart. Senior Han Jianxing, I'm sorry. They thought you were the murderer and I couldn't help it. Although many people wanted to be famous, Mo sure didn't want to be famous at the moment. He wanted to collect killing points. If everyone knew who he was, they would hide far away from him. How would he be able to kill them? Chapter 436. In 3 days, the news of the destruction of the Sky Gold Trisect spread throughout the 16 prefectures. This shocked the entire 16 prefectures. When the various factions and sects learned of this news, they all retracted their sharp edges. After all, they knew that the 3 sects were usually arrogant. Especially the Sky Gold sect. No matter what they did, they always pretended to be righteous and found a dignified reason. However, those who understood. Everyone knew that the Sky Gold sect wasn't anything good. However, the Sky Gold sect was too powerful and they didn't dare to voice their anger. Now that the Sky Gold sect was destroyed, they had to restrain themselves even though it was satisfying. If they were noticed by the ruthless person who destroyed the 3 sects, wouldn't their sects follow in the footsteps of the Sky Gold Trisect? At the same time, many people raised some guesses. They were guessing who the culprit was. Given the strength of the Sky Gold Trisect, it must be an incredible major faction to be able to destroy the 3 sects in a day. Perhaps it was another major faction on the continent. The continent was very big. There were at least 800 factions that were stronger than the Sky Gold Trisect. In front of such a major faction, the Sky Gold sect was an ant. However, even if a major faction came, there must be a large number of people to be able to destroy the 3 sects in a day. It was impossible that no one had seen such a huge commotion. Therefore, it couldn't be a major faction on the continent. It was very likely to be an unparalleled expert. If it was an unparalleled expert, it was very likely to be an expert from the 16 prefectures. This was because compared to the other prefectures, the 16 prefectures were relatively barren. Whether it was crystal source ores or other cultivation materials, they were pitifully scarce. Therefore, experts who were at least Grand Desolate Masters wouldn't come to the 16 prefectures. As for a local expert to be able to do this, at the thought of this, a figure appeared in everyone's mind. He looked like a scholar with a 3-meter-long giant sword beside him. The giant sword was 3 meters long in battle and 5 meters when used as a flying device. Chilling the 16 prefectures with a single sword, Han Jianxing. If there was anyone in the 16 prefectures who could do this, it would be Han Jianxing. A few decades ago he had single-handedly destroyed 19 sections. At that time he was already a Grade 1 Grand Desolate Master. Now that a few decades had passed with his talent, it was not difficult for him to become a Grade 3 or even Grade 4 Grand Desolate Master. It was still a little too difficult for such an expert to destroy the Sky Gold Trisect in a single day. After all, there were more than 100,000 disciples in the 3 sections. Killing 300,000 people in one day, unless this person was a very strong spiritual reader master. Clearly Han Jianxing was not one of them. However, Han Jianxing would go to the Ancient Dragon battlefield every year. What kind of place was the Ancient Dragon battlefield? It was a place that no hunters below level 5 dared to casually enter. Moreover, he had gone to District 4 of the Ancient Dragon battlefield. It was said that the 4th region of the Ancient Dragon battlefield was a place that even Grand Desolate Masters did not dare to casually enter. It was no wonder that such a person could destroy the Celestial Gold Trisect. In the Liangzhou of the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud, there was a desolate western border. At the top of a dilapidated ancient city gate, a man was sitting there with a wine pot in his hand. As he drank, he looked at the setting sun in the west. Beside him, there was a 3-meter-long sword that brushed against the stone wall. This man was Han Jianxing. At this moment, a woman who looked to be in her 20s descended from the sky. "Father, don't drink anymore." The person who came was none other than Han Jianxing's daughter, Han Lubai. Han Jianxing turned his head and looked at his daughter drowsily. His eyes revealed a trace of affection. "Since I have nothing to do, I'll drink to relax." Han Lubai didn't want to dwell on this matter. Instead she asked, "Dad, did you destroy their sect again?" Han Jianxing shook his head. "Why would I destroy another sect for no reason?" Han Lubai curled her lips. "Come on, it's not like you haven't done it before." Han Jianxing shook his head again and did not argue. Han Lubai turned on her multifunctional watch and opened a few web pages. She handed them to Han Jianxing. "You're still denying it?" Han Jianxing looked at the words on the web pages. Shocking. A sword freezing the 16 prefectures reappears in the pugilistic world. Sorry Sky Gold Sect. Sorry Skywood Sect. Sorry Heavenly Water Sect. I Han Jianxing have returned to the pugilistic world. First battle in the pugilistic world, I destroyed 3 sects in one battle. The words below were basically about Han Jianxing's return to the pugilistic world and the destruction of 3 sections. Moreover, he made it sound like it was real. There were even photos of the scene. Corpses were strewn all over the ground. Several mountain peaks were dyed blood red. Destroyed mountain peaks and so on. There were even the corpses of the Sky Gold Sect's sect master and grand elder who had been reduced to meat paste. If not for their clothes, it would be impossible to tell that they were the 2 grand desolate masters of the Sky Gold Sect. And there were also some live streamers who went to the scene to do a live broadcast. The blood mist that filled the sky, the corpses that were strewn all over the ground, and the huge collapsed mountain rocks were all telling the story of the massacre that had happened that day. Seeing this, Han Jianxing shook his head. It's not me. Han Lubai curled her lips again. Still stubborn? Look at the article below. The analysis is reasonable and it's saying that it's you. Still not admitting it? Han Jianxing laughed. Can the unscrupulous media nowadays be trusted? Han Lubai still didn't believe him and asked back. If it's not you, who can it be? Hearing her question, a figure appeared in Han Lubai's mind. It should be him. Seeing this, Han Lubai asked, Who? Han Jianxing said, Do you still remember when you threw a tantrum and went to the 13th hunting ground? Han Lubai nodded. Yes, what's wrong? Han Jianxing said, At that time there was a kid who provided me with clues. That's why I could find you so quickly. Han Lubai's heart skipped a beat. You mean that little brother? Han Jianxing nodded. Yes. Han Lubai shook her head. This is impossible. At that time he wasn't even a desolate master. It's only been half a year. How could he have grown to this level? Han Jianxing nodded again. This time I went to the ancient dragon battlefield and saw him. He killed the sect masters of the Skywood sect and the Heavenly Water sect by himself, as well as more than 400 elite disciples of the Sky Gold Trisect. And with a strange saber he killed more than 1,000 giant dragon evil spirits in the 4th district. Han Lubai's mouth opened wider and wider as she listened. Dad, are you joking with me? From a desolate master to a grand desolate master in half a year? Isn't this too ridiculous? You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.